We just found something we weren't supposed to find. Not yet. Maybe not ever. 120 light years away, floating in the cold void of space, there's a planet. And on that planet, there's a chemical that shouldn't exist. Not naturally. Not without life. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope picked up the signal a few months ago. The scientists running the analysis went quiet. Double-checked everything. Triple-checked. Because what they were seeing, it didn't make sense. Unless we're not alone. The chemical is called dimethyl sulfide. You've probably never heard of it, but here's what matters. On Earth, only living things make it. Phytoplankton in the ocean, breaking down organic matter. Life produces it. Always has. Always will. And now we're seeing it 120 light years away. This isn't about little green men or flying saucers. This is about finding proof that life exists somewhere other than this pale blue dot we call home. And if it's real, if this signal holds up under scrutiny, then everything changes. Our place in the universe, our understanding of biology, our entire conception of what it means to be alive. But before we pop the champagne, we need to talk about what this really means, because the story of K2-18b is stranger and more complicated than any headline can capture. The discovery. Let's rewind. August 2023. A team of astronomers releases data from the James Webb Space Telescope. They've been studying an exoplanet called K2-18b, and they've found something unusual in its atmosphere. K2-18b isn't some random rock floating through space. It's what astronomers call a sub-Neptune, bigger than Earth, smaller than Neptune, about 8.6 times Earth's mass. It orbits a red dwarf star in the constellation Leo. And here's the kicker. It sits right in the habitable zone. The habitable zone. That Goldilocks region where temperatures are just right. Not too hot, not too cold. Where liquid water can exist on the surface. Where life, as we know it, could theoretically survive. But K2-18b isn't Earth. Not even close. The planet is probably covered in a hydrogen-rich atmosphere. The pressure would crush you instantly. The radiation from its sun would cook you alive. If you could somehow stand on its surface, which you can't, because there probably isn't a solid surface, you'd be looking at a world completely alien to anything we've experienced. Yet the James Webb Telescope detected something in that alien atmosphere. Water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide, all interesting but not shocking. Planets can have these chemicals without life. Then they saw it, a spectral line that matched dimethyl sulfide. The researchers were careful. They didn't scream aliens from the rooftops. They published their findings in a peer-reviewed journal. They used phrases like tentative detection and requires confirmation. They knew exactly how explosive this discovery could be. But the science community understood what they were really saying. Dimethyl sulfide is a biosignature, a chemical fingerprint of life. And we just found it on another world. What is dimethyl sulfide? Okay, chemistry class, don't worry, I'll keep it simple. Dimethyl sulfide, or DMS, is a sulfur compound. The chemical formula is CH3SCH3 if you care about that sort of thing. It smells terrible, like cabbage or garlic mixed with ocean water. Not pleasant. On Earth, marine algae produce it constantly. Phytoplankton, those microscopic plants floating in the ocean, they make DMS as they break down a different compound called dimethyl sulfoniopropanate. That's a mouthful, so let's just stick with DMS. Here's why it matters. We've never found a non-biological way to produce significant amounts of DMS. Sure, you could synthesize it in a lab. You could create it through some industrial process. But in nature, in an atmosphere, on a planet, life is the only mechanism we know. That's what makes this discovery so staggering. If DMS is really in K2-18b's atmosphere, and if it's there in detectable quantities, then something is producing it, and that something is probably alive. But, and this is a massive but, we're not 100% certain yet. The spectral line they detected is weak. The signal could be contaminated by other chemicals. There might be some exotic geological process we don't understand that creates DMS without biology. The measurements could simply be wrong. This is the frustrating reality of exoplanet science. We're looking at worlds trillions of miles away. We can't send probes. We can't collect samples. We can only analyze the light filtering through their atmospheres and make educated guesses about what's there. And sometimes, those guesses are wrong. How we detect atmospheres. Let's talk about how we even know what's in K2-18b's atmosphere. Because this isn't like sending a weather balloon up to take measurements. This planet is 120 light years away. The light we're seeing right now left that planet around the year 1905. The technique is called transit spectroscopy. When K2-18b passes in front of its star from our perspective, a tiny bit of starlight filters through the planet's atmosphere before reaching us. Different chemicals absorb different wavelengths of light. By analyzing which wavelengths are missing or dimmed, we can figure out what's in that atmosphere. It's like looking at a barcode. Each chemical has its own unique pattern. Water vapor absorbs certain wavelengths. Methane absorbs others. Carbon dioxide has its own signature. And dimethyl sulfide, it has a spectral line around 9.7 micrometers. That's what the James Webb Telescope potentially detected. But here's the problem. Other chemicals can produce similar spectral lines. Methane and carbon dioxide, which we know are present in K2-18b's atmosphere, can create features that might look like DMS if the data is noisy. The researchers had to separate the DMS signal from all the other noise, and that's incredibly difficult. Think of it like trying to hear someone whisper in a crowded stadium. Sure, you might catch a few words, but are you certain you heard them correctly? Or did your brain fill in the gaps based on what you expected to hear? That's the situation we're in. The DMS signal is there, but it's faint. It needs confirmation. The Hycean world hypothesis. K2-18b might represent an entirely new category of planet, something we've never seen before. Astronomers are calling it a Hycean world. Hycean, a combination of hydrogen and ocean. The theory goes like this. Beneath K2-18b's thick hydrogen atmosphere, there could be a massive ocean, a global water world with depths we can barely imagine. And in that ocean, under the crushing pressure and strange chemistry of an alien environment, life might exist. This isn't Earth-like life. Forget forests and animals and anything you'd recognize. This would be microbial life. Extremophils adapted to conditions that would annihilate anything on our planet. Life clinging to existence in complete darkness, feeding on chemical energy, evolving in ways we can't predict. But life nonetheless. The Hycean hypothesis is speculative, but it's gaining traction. It solves several problems. It explains how a planet like K2-18b could have liquid water despite being so different from Earth. It provides a mechanism for biological activity. It expands our definition of habitability beyond the narrow Earth-like parameters we've traditionally used. If Hycean worlds exist, and if they can support life, then the universe just got a lot more interesting. Because sub-Neptunes are common. Really common. More common than Earth-sized planets in many star systems. We might be surrounded by ocean worlds teeming with alien microbes, and we just didn't know where to look. The skepticism. Not everyone is convinced. Some scientists are pumping the brakes hard on this discovery, and for good reason. First, the DMS detection needs independent confirmation. Other teams need to analyze the same data and reach the same conclusion. Better yet, we need more observations of K2-18b with different instruments to verify the signal. One tentative detection isn't enough to declare we've found alien life. Second, we don't fully understand K2-18b's environment. The temperature, pressure, and radiation levels might make biological DMS production impossible. Maybe there's some weird atmospheric chemistry happening that we haven't considered. Maybe volcanic activity or photochemical reactions are creating DMS-like signatures. Third, the history of biosignature claims is littered with false alarms. Remember the phosphine on Venus announcement? That dominated headlines, sparked fierce debate, and then fell apart under scrutiny. Other teams couldn't replicate the findings. The signal might have been sulfur dioxide all along. Science moves slowly for a reason. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Finding alien life would be the most significant discovery in human history. We can't afford to get it wrong. So the scientists who found DMS on K2-18b are being careful. They're not saying we found aliens. They're saying we found something interesting that deserves more investigation. That's the right approach. But it's also agonizing, because if they're right, if that DMS signal is real and biological, then we're living through one of the most important moments in the history of our species. And we won't know for sure for years. What happens next? More observations. That's the unsexy answer, but it's the truth. The James Webb Space Telescope will continue studying K2-18b. Other observatories will join the effort. Teams around the world will analyze the data from every possible angle. They'll look for other biosignatures, chemicals that life produces alongside DMS. They'll model K218b's atmosphere in computer simulations to see if non-biological processes could explain the signal. This will take time, maybe years, maybe decades. But we're also entering a golden age of exoplanet research. New telescopes are coming online. New techniques are being developed. The technology that seemed impossible a generation ago is now routine. We're finding planets around other stars at an accelerating rate, and we're learning more about their atmospheres every day. K2-18b won't be the last potentially habitable world we study. It might not even be the most promising. There are thousands of exoplanets out there, and we're only beginning to survey them. If life exists beyond Earth, we're going to find it. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in the next 5 years, but soon, within our lifetimes. And when we do, when we finally have irrefutable proof that we're not alone, the world will never be the same. What this means for humanity. Let's assume for a moment that the DMS on K2-18b is real, that it's biological, that we've actually detected alien life for the first time. What then? First, it would confirm that life isn't unique to Earth. That's huge. It would mean that given the right conditions, life emerges. Maybe it's rare. Maybe it requires specific circumstances. But it happens. The universe isn't sterile, it's alive. Second, it would change how we search for life elsewhere. If microbial life can exist on a Hycean world like K2-18b, then we need to expand our search beyond Earth-like planets. We need to look at ocean worlds, at moons around gas giants, at planets that we previously dismissed as uninhabitable. Third, it would force us to reconsider what life actually is. Earth-based life uses DNA, requires water, metabolizes in specific ways. But alien life might be fundamentally different. It might use different chemistry, different energy sources, different reproductive strategies. Finding life on K2-18b wouldn't answer all our questions. It would raise a million new ones. Are we alone in the universe? That's the question we've been asking since we first looked up at the stars. It's driven our myths, our religions, our philosophies. It's shaped how we see ourselves. And we might finally have an answer. 120 light-years away, a planet orbits a red dwarf star. It's not like Earth. It's not like anywhere humans could ever live. But deep in its atmosphere, there's a chemical that shouldn't be there. Dimethyl sulfide, the smell of life. We don't know for sure if it's real. The signal is weak. The data needs confirmation. Years of analysis lie ahead. But if it holds up, if that signal survives scrutiny, then October 2025 will be remembered as the time when humanity stopped being alone in the universe. When we detected the first signs of alien life. When everything changed. The James Webb Space Telescope continues its observations. Scientists are working around the clock. The data is being analyzed, reanalyzed, picked apart from every angle. And somewhere out there, 120 light-years away, something might be alive. Something might be producing chemicals, metabolizing, existing in ways we've never imagined. Something might be looking up at their own alien sky, at the faint point of light that is our sun, and wondering if they're alone. They're not. And neither are we. This is just the beginning. The search for life continues. NASA's next-generation telescopes are already being designed. New missions are being planned. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, on a planet we've never visited and never will, the answer to humanity's oldest question might already be waiting. We just have to look.